The sin all Christians are complicit in. Sin is not just breaking a rule laid down by God. Sin is not akin to breaking secular law. We are to be perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. But sin is not just falling short of this standard. We have to go back to the story of the fall to understand sin. Eden was not a physical place. It was conceptual. We have to conceive of what God decreed as something that was good, or morally perfect. When we were ejected from Eden, it did not mean we just left an area that was part of a much larger area. Leaving Eden was not the same as leaving New York to go to Maine. A closer parallel would be leaving capitalism to support communism. Another way of seeing the event would be to denounce Buddhism to become Muslim. There were real and fundamental changes that accompanied our ejection from Eden. But the situation we created in Eden persisted after Eden. We were the people of the flesh, but we are told about a new race of beings called the people of the Spirit. To go from one to the other requires a spiritual rebirth. These groups do not have a physical difference. Those who live in the Spirit still have physical bodies, and those who are of the flesh still have spirits. The difference is in how we live and what has significance for us. We cannot be perfected in the flesh. If we wish to be perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect, we have to live in the Spirit. If we cannot be perfected in the flesh and must live in the Spirit, then one sin is enough to make it impossible to live in the Spirit. Sin is part of the life of the flesh. This is akin to two worlds or realities peopled by two races. These two paths are alienated one from the other. We may look the same, but we live in different nations. The apostate path is not divided from the path of the Spirit by how many laws we break. It only takes original sin. We all think we can own what belongs to God. It is a matter of faith that permits us to deny this. The world we are in is a matter of whom we believe. Is God who He says He is? Will He do what He says He will do? If we believe God is trustworthy, we ought to follow Him. If we are in doubt, then we will obey the state. The state, we are told, is not a terror to good works, but to evil. Romans 13 verses 1-7 Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. For there is no power but of God, the powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same, for he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. We are not to rebel. We are to be a source of constancy and reliability. Yet still it is the higher power we are subject to, not the lesser, in fear and honor is to go to who it is due. If we put ourselves under the secular state, then the secular ruler is he to whom we owe allegiance. This is what we have done as the Church. We have made the fallen world the greater power. We make the secular powers the greater power because of our service to it. The state is an idol we serve, and in serving it, it becomes the higher power. The higher power served, when the higher power is God, gives us justice because it gives God justice. The higher power, when it is not God, is idolatry. We give the idol life by our service. But there is no justice in this. All Romans is saying be consistent. Be not as the church of Laodicea was, lukewarm. God would prefer if we were one or the other. The worst thing we can do is to try and be part of both worlds, believing in neither. Yet, we cannot be part of the state and remain pure and undefiled. Romans tells us that the powers that be are ordained of God. If not ordained by God, they are not the higher power. The power belongs to the Creator, for the Creator not only created all things but owns all things, and to Him we owe allegiance. The state lays claim to the things of God, and we who are Christians, along with the rest who are secularists, give power to the state. This is idolatry. There is no justice that comes from complying with what is ungodly. An idol is anything that creates costs it cannot pay. This is why idols are dead. They cannot return what is given nor increase what was got. Idols are devoid of justice. Such is the state. We serve dead gods when we embrace idolatry. The state has nothing and can give nothing, and yet we serve the state. We give it alms and tribute and a portion of all we have gained. The state returneth nothing. It gives back but a portion of what was given it. It cannot increase anything nor provide anything that was not first given to it. The only people the state can benefit are the ones who do not serve God. Imagine a person who works for what he gets and lives within his means. He is law-abiding and trustworthy. Now imagine a society of these same people. They have children and raise them in godly homes. They send their children to school and the children are studious and well-behaved. They listen to their elders. The mother stays home caring for the family and doing all those small and large things a family needs doing, while the father works consciously and honestly and brings home the money needed to care for the family. What will the state do for these families and for this community? This is a problem for the state. The just do not need the state, and the state can only exist as a burden on the just. The state's existence is dependent on evil. Imagine a group in which fathers will not work, and when he has a job, he uses it to steal from the company as much as he can, while working as little as he can get away with. The mother hates motherhood and finds her children annoying and burdensome. She does as little housework as possible and expects her family to live off of prepared foods. The children are even more unruly than their father and need constant supervision. They are continually fighting and misbehaving and need the attention of social services and even the police. This is a family that needs the state, both to pay for the housing and food and other services. But they also need the state to issue regulations. They do not obey the law, but they need the law to protect them from the repercussions of their actions. The only reason why the just need social services and the justice system is to punish the unjust for the harm they do to the community. But the state does need this family and those like them, to give the state a job and a role in the community. The state needs the unjust to justify their existence and their power. The more of these people in a community, the more likely the state will be justified usurping the rights of the just. When things get bad enough, the state will be justified in bringing in martial law. This is the point at which the state becomes a totalitarian dictatorship that owns and controls everything. What the just must realize is that sin is not sin because it is a bad action, sin is sin because of the injustice it creates. Being friendly with the enemy is not a crime because it is offensive, it is a crime because it produces an injustice. It is not that the just want the enemy to be friendless, it is that war is a fight for justice. Idolatry, in whatever form it takes, helps the enemy of God. To oppose God is always unjust. This begs the question, if the state helps the enemies of God, why is the church helping the state? Do we not have faith, because the only justification for helping the state is our lack of faith in what God has provided? If we do not trust one another, we need the state to ensure we are not oppressed by others of our kind. But it is the state that is the ultimate source of all oppression. It is the state that subsidizes the workers of injustice. The Bible tells us quite clearly and in no uncertain words, that if any will not work, neither should he eat. 2 Thessalonians 3 verses 10-15 For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. Now them that are such we command and exhort by our Lord Jesus Christ, that with quietness they work, and eat their own bread. But ye, brethren, be not weary in well-doing. And if any man obey not our word by this epistle, note that man, and have no company with him, that he may be ashamed. Yet count him not as an enemy, but admonish him as a brother. But the workers of oppression, it seems, know more than Christ about what is right and just. The unjust justify many kinds of activities and charities that befoul the clear teachings of God. We are not permitted to fund the ones who bear no fruit. We can link this teaching with Matthew 18. Matthew 18 verses 15-20 Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as an heathen man and a publican. Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again I say unto